The first time the HOA came after my truck, I thought it was just a misunderstanding. They claimed it was too large and didn't fit the neighborhood's aesthetic. But that truck wasn't just a vehicle, it was my lifeline, my workhorse, and a symbol of the years I spent building my life. After serving in the military, when they tried to tow it from my driveway, I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about control. If you enjoy powerful real-life stories of standing up to HOA abuse and want more justice-driven tales like this, make sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. I live in a quiet neighborhood where most people keep to themselves. The truck, my old Ford F-250, was more than just metal and wheels. It hauled supplies for my handyman business, carried equipment for weekend projects, and reminded me of my dad, who gave it to me before he passed. To me, it was family. The HOA didn't care. They slapped warning notices on my door, fined me for unauthorized parking, and even sent threats saying they'd have the truck impounded. Every letter felt like they were chipping away at my freedom. I tried reasoning with them at first. I showed them my business license, explained how the truck wasn't a nuisance, and even parked it neatly in my driveway, never on the street. But their responses were cold, almost smug. It was clear they weren't enforcing rules for fairness, they were enforcing them for power. Things escalated one Friday morning. I heard the rumble of a tow truck outside. Heart pounding. I rushed out and saw it backing toward my truck. The HOA president, Karen, a sharp-eyed woman who strutted around like she owned the block, stood nearby with her arms crossed. "This vehicle is not permitted," she said smugly. I stood between the tow truck and my F-250, refusing to move. My voice was steady, but inside I was boiling. "You're not taking my truck." The tow operator looked uneasy. "Sir, I've got an order signed by the HOA." That was when I heard footsteps. 3 of my neighbors, Tom, Miguel, and Anderson, all veterans like me, had come outside. They didn't say much at first. They just stood behind me, arms folded, forming a wall of solidarity. Karen's smirk faltered. Tom, the oldest of us, stepped forward. "You're not towing anything today." The tow driver hesitated, glancing between Karen and us. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. My neighbors weren't just watching, they were ready to act. For the first time, I saw fear flicker across Karen's face. And that's when I realized I wasn't fighting this battle alone. The HOA board wasn't done. The following week, they tried to outmaneuver me with a special hearing. Their plan was simple: overwhelm me with paperwork and bylaws until I caved. But what they didn't expect was that I'd come prepared, because my neighbors and I weren't just fighting for a truck. We were fighting against abuse of power. At the meeting, the board sat in their usual smug circle, papers stacked high in front of them. Karen, the loudest of the group, adjusted her glasses dramatically and began reading off violations. She called my truck an eyesore, a hazard, and even claimed it lowered property values. I stayed calm, but I noticed how my veteran neighbors had slipped in the back of the room. They weren't there to cause trouble, they were witnesses, ready to speak. When Karen paused for breath, I asked a simple question: show me the bylaw that says trucks are banned. The room went quiet. The board shuffled papers, flipping back and forth. Finally, one of them muttered, "It's implied." Implied? I leaned forward. "So you're trying to take my property over something that doesn't even exist in writing?" That's when my neighbor, James, a retired Air Force officer, stood up. His voice was steady, commanding. "We've lived here for decades. This HOA has no legal ground to harass residents with made-up rules. If you want to enforce something, it has to be written, approved, and voted on. Otherwise, it's harassment." The board tried to silence him, but the room was shifting. Other residents had shown up too. Many who'd been quietly bullied by the HOA. And for the first time, they weren't afraid to speak. One by one, people started telling stories about petty fines, threats, and intimidation. By the end of it, the board looked less like authority and more like a group of bullies caught in the act. But the real victory came a week later. A letter arrived from the county legal office. It stated, clearly, the HOA had no jurisdiction over vehicle types unless explicitly written in the bylaws. The attempted tow was unlawful, and any further harassment could lead to legal consequences. I smiled when I read it, but I didn't smile alone. My neighbors celebrated too, because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us standing together. That weekend, we hosted a cookout. My truck sat proudly in the driveway, decorated with an American flag. The veterans who'd stood by me laughed and shared stories, while the rest of the community relaxed for the first time in a long while. The HOA board? They didn't show up. They couldn't face the people they'd tried to control. And me? I learned something powerful: when neighbors stand united, no HOA, no matter how entitled, can win. If you enjoyed this story of community, courage, and standing up against injustice, make sure to subscribe for more powerful HOA revenge stories. Your support helps keep these stories coming.